This week on the Navigating Personal Growth podcast, as moms and women and friends and aunts and cousins and all the hats that we wear, we so many times serve before we fill up our own cup. But what happens when we do that is we end up burned out. Hey Navigators, my name is Brooke Clack and I'm your host here today on the Navigating Personal Growth podcast. And I'm so glad that you're here to tune in today. If it's your first time, welcome. You are in for a treat. Today's episode is so special to me because we are talking about self-love and how self-love does not make you selfish and how you can take some actionable steps to make yourself a priority this year. So I want to start the episode by challenging the guilt that many of us feel when we're focusing on ourselves. As moms and women and friends and aunts and cousins and all the hats that we wear, we so many times serve before we fill up our own cup. But what happens when we do that is we end up burned out, sad, depressed, anxious, all those yucky feelings that we don't want to feel. And I have been there, y'all. I have been there. I have been the mom who poured from an empty cup and ended up short-tempered with my son and snappy at my husband and not the best version of myself. And over time, I have learned that the saying that we all kind of roll our eyes at or huff at of, you have to fill your cup first before you fill anyone else's, is so true. It is so very true because we are the creators in this world. We are the generators of so many things. You give a woman a house, what does she make it? A home. You give women things, they turn them into something else. And so this episode is not just for women. It's for women and men, but we all speak from a place of what we know, right? So self-love is something that is so important as women, but it's also so important for men because so many men spend so much energy doing. Okay. Many times they're the provider of the household or one of the providers, and they're also helping take care of the kids. And they're also trying to shuffle, people here and there and take care of aging parents and all of those things. And so it's not always just the women, it's the men too, who wear so many hats. But if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't start from a place of abundance, it really fries us and burns us out in the end. And so I'm going to define self-love and give us a little feel-good inspirational quote. And then I'm going to share a short story for myself as well as a story about clients and people that I've worked with over the years that really epitomizes this feeling of self-love and how it can transform our lives. So self-love is defined as prioritizing your well-being to show up, underline, bold, highlight, fully for others. Prioritizing your well-being to show up fully for others. And the quote that gave me like the feel goods was, you owe yourself the love you so freely give to others. Oh, I say this like, how are you talking to yourself how you would talk to those people that you love? Ooh. Like the way I talk to myself sometimes is harsh and it's hurtful. And I have to catch myself because I can truly realize that I've talked myself into my own bad mood. So here's a little story about how this showed up in my life. So if you've watched many of the episodes or followed me on social media, you know that I'm an entrepreneur, a mother, and a wife. Those are the things that take up most of my life. And I spent most of my 30s doing more, growing the businesses, getting married, having a child, doing. And something my therapist said to me this week that really dawned on me was, doing isn't the only verb. Being is also a verb. And how many times do we spend our lives focused on the doing and not the being? And when we do, then we end up just like I did. in my mid to late 30s, burned out, exhausted, in a bad mood, and not somebody you would want to hang out with and be around. And when that happened, I knew I had to do something different. And so now I have a pretty radical self-care routine that's, to exhibit self-love to myself that I'm going to share closer to the end of the episode. But next, I'm going to tell you a story about Maya. Maya is a fictional person created or based on a true story. Okay. Maya was known as the person who always said yes. At work, she'd volunteer for extra projects, even when her plate was already full. At home, she juggled her children's activities, her aging parents' needs, and the social obligations she felt too guilty to decline. By the time she hit her mid 30s, Maya was constantly exhausted and found herself snapping at the people she loved most. One day, while driving to yet another meeting she didn't have energy for, she realized she felt like a stranger to herself. You ever been there? She couldn't remember the last time she truly rested or did something just for joy. That evening, she broke down and confided in her best friend, who gently suggested she might be burning out and said, "Maya, when was the last time you said no to someone?" Man, I got chills on my arms. Like, that's real. That question was a turning point for Maya. She began to read about burnout and learn the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care. At first, the idea of saying no felt impossible. She feared disappointing others or being perceived as selfish, but she decided to start small. The next time her coworkers asked her to take a project that wasn't part of her responsibilities, she politely declined. And to her surprise, her coworker didn't react negatively. She just found someone else to help. Encouraged by this and gaining a little confidence, Maya started to implement boundaries in other areas of her life, and she started to dedicate me hours on her calendar where she could read or take a long bath or just relax. She blocked her weekends to focus on her family and herself and limited her commitments to only those that aligned with her priorities. It was challenging at first, and she felt waves of guilt and anxiety each time she enforced these boundaries. But as the weeks turned into months, she noticed a transformation. Her energy returned. I'll get teary eyed. It's not even a real person. Her mood improved, and she felt more present in her relationships because I know this. I know Maya. I know someone just like this, or 10 someones. By saying no to what drained her, she had the capacity to say yes to what mattered. And for her, that was her health, her passions, and her family. One evening, her daughter hugged her and said, "Mom, you're so much happier now." That simple observation reminded Maya why her journey had been worth it. She realized that by taking care of herself, she was also setting an example for her children about self-respect and balance. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was her own again. And she learned that boundaries weren't walls to keep others out. They were gates to protect what was most important. And self-care wasn't selfish. It was essential. That's good, huh? Because so many times we do feel that guilt of saying no. We do feel that guilt of setting a boundary when really we're just putting a gate on what matters most. And so my question for you is, what is one act of self-love you've been neglecting? What's one area you've not been taking care of yourself? Is it rest? Is it mental or emotional? Maybe it's your nutrition or being active and getting your body moving. Those are all things we can do to take care of ourselves and show us that we love ourselves and that we are worth showing up for. Because if we can't prioritize that we're worth showing up for, how are we going to show up for other people? Because you can do it for a little while, but you can't do it for a long while. So we're going to talk about some easy ways to get this started in your own life after we have trivia in the trenches. And this one's kind of funny today. Which land mammal is the manatee most closely related to? An elephant. What? I didn't know that. They both have very thick skin. Sometimes it's over an inch thick, and they even have 3 to 4 toenails, just like an elephant. Pretty crazy. But if you've ever seen a manatee and seen an elephant, their skin is very similar. And the wrinkles and like the lines and like how like it looks, I mean, so leather like, right? So interesting. Fun fact of the day. All right. So, how do we put this in action? How do we take it from being a concept of self love and actually start exhibiting this in our lives? So, the first one is something Maya exhibited in our story is say no to protect your time and energy. If you struggle with that, there's a book called The Best Yes. And that's an excellent read. We'll link that in the show notes for you as well. But The Best Yes walks you through how if you protect your yeses by saying no most of the time, then you're able to give a yes when it matters most. But if you've always been saying yes, you never have time to figure out what that looks like. You have never had the time to say yes to what you really want to because your life is filled with things that you would really rather say no to. And Michael Hyatt says it this way: if you don't take control of your calendar, someone else will. Man, that's true. Because there goes that little blank spot on your calendar and somebody asks for a lunch or a meeting or a this or that and you just, you got the time, but should you know? The answer is no. No, they have to wait till next month. No, you can't do that right now. Because your time and your energy are truly your most precious resources. You can make more money, you can buy more stuff, but you can never make more time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. So if you are saying yes to everything and not putting gates around what matters most, that is going to consume you. Number 2, develop a self-care routine that works for you. Now, I'm going to share my routine, and it's kind of insane. And I'm not going to lie. I know it's insane, and I'm just going to acknowledge it. Okay. But I'm not saying that this should be your routine. I'm just saying this is my routine. So you have to figure out what works for you. All right. So my morning routine is like my self-care time of the day. Okay. I go hard all day and I pitter out by night, and I'm like 8:30, 9 o'clock to bed. So my morning routine is where it's at. So I wake up an hour before I'm going to leave my house to go work out. Okay. So an hour before, I lay in bed and I read my scripture, my devotional, and I let nature do its thing an hour before I leave. Okay. Then I get my snack. I always have an apple in the mornings and water, and I go to the gym and I lift weights. And then I come home and I walk about 3 miles. So you're like, okay, this is 3 hours in. It is totally 3 hours in. And I get it. I get up really early. I, read my Bible, I work out, and I lift all before my boys are up. Okay. So that's how I prioritize. And then I come home, get them started on their things, make my breakfast, and then I shower and get ready. So I'm not saying that should be your routine because I'm self-employed and work from home. So it's a little bit different. But I'm saying that you should have a self-care routine to be able to show this self-love to yourself. So if it's every Thursday night, you take a bubble bath, then by grannies, don't let anybody come in the way of that date, right? Or if it's every morning, you get up 30 minutes early so you can sit and drink your coffee in silence and just have a moment to breathe and think. Because remember, being is also a verb. So develop a routine that works for you, because if we don't prioritize it, it won't happen. And remember, like we say with everything else on the podcast, start small. What are some small things you can do to add into your day that are votes for who you want to be? Because we are the ones that are empowered to invest in ourselves. It's not anyone else's responsibility to make us happy. But in order for us to truly grow as a human, we've got to create that space. So say no, develop a self-care routine. And then this one's kind of hard. Oh, I know. I feel like I struggle with this one too, but challenge the negative self-talk with affirmations and kindness. How are you talking to yourself? Do you know? Are you taking time to notice how you're talking to yourself? Because when I take time to notice how I'm talking to myself, it ain't pretty, y'all. I'm not going to lie. It's not pretty. Like if I'm running late somewhere, my internal monologue's like, I cannot believe you didn't get it together and get out of the house in time. And why are you running late? And then, girl, just chill. Like, it's going to be okay. That's what I have to tell myself because I wouldn't talk to anyone else like that. If someone else was running late, I'd be like, it's okay. Don't rush. We're going to be here when you get here. So I need to talk to myself with that same kind of kindness. So start noticing first, how are you talking to yourself, and then start looking for ways that you can improve that self-talk with compassion and kindness, and giving yourself affirmations too when you do well. Like, get it, girl. Look at you running early. Okay. So, like, I think I'm good at that part when I'm doing good, but I'm super hard on myself internally when I don't feel like I'm meeting my own expectations, right? Which are often like way higher than anyone else's would be. Okay. So, say no, develop a self care routine that works for you, and challenge that negative self-talk. And I truly, I'm still on a New Year's high here, I think, but I cannot wait to see the change and transformation that you guys make over the coming year. And I would love for you to share them with me. So please email me things, the goodness and the good things that are happening and the changes you're making in your life at chat@brookeplack.com, because that lights up my day when I hear from my listeners. And so to close us out, I have a quote for us that is not an unknown author. Self-love is the foundation for all love. That's good, huh? Go forth and do great things for yourself. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Navigating Personal Growth podcast. I'm Brooke Plack. Join me again next week on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. This podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.